one group of students procrastinates because they are perfectionists. These students know they have homework to do and projects to complete, but they're still working on the perfect solution. They don't want to start with what they know now because they think that they may have an even better solution if they give themselves more time to think about it. The second group of students that we see procrastinate are the ones who do not see the value in the work they have been asked to complete. We'll call this the pointless procrastinators. These students will often work quickly in some subjects, but procrastinate in the subject or subjects they find more arcane. In both cases, the result can be the same. They produce stress and poor academic performance, though the perfectionist is more likely to experience stress and the pointless procrastinator is more likely to experience academic failure. The 0 is a devastating blow. Grading skills vary from school to school, but a typical failing grade starts in the 60s, so the mathematical impact of a 0 grade is significant. Students with 0s for grades have a significant mathematical obstacle to overcome. The 0 also says something about the student. The 0 grade means the student has done nothing, is behind in their studies, or their organizational system is a failure. Most private schools work hard to have a low student-teacher ratio. This lower ratio should allow your teachers to get to know students better and be more able to meet each student's needs. Another difference you will find between private school and a public school is the peer group of the students. Private schools can be selective. What this means is that they can choose their students based off a criteria that they have set in mind in admissions, whereas public schools must work with whoever is in their zone. Private schools can selectively enroll students who fit their criteria, leading to a better ability to tailor curriculum to meet the needs of the students. One final difference you may want to research is whether private school students are more successful at university and in life. The overall research seems to indicate that private school students are more successful, though central to this debate is whether the success is the product of the private school or the higher quality of the students to begin with. Many parents and educators may feel that any student labeled as GT should be at the top of their class and capable of extraordinary achievement. Some teachers may give GT students more work to complete than their academic or even advanced peers. The pressure of expectations and additional workload may be a tremendous burden to the gifted student, and often may be quite an unreasonable expectation. Letting quiet grow in the classroom feels like wasted minutes. But sometimes, minutes born in silence can be more effective to engage students and challenge students. In a more traditional schedule, students are going to class every day. Schools can vary, but this is typically 6 to 8 classes a day for students. They have shorter class periods and more class transitions. It's typically believed that this type of schedule has more consistency for the student. Students have the same classes and the same teachers each day and likely have homework in each subject at night. If a student struggles with a concept, the consistency of the traditional schedule allows the student to get questions answered every day if needed. The amount of time transitioning classes is considered a drawback of this type of schedule. Not only is twice as much time lost to class transitions, teachers and administrators now have twice as much time to manage students between classes. At first glance, tardies may seem like a minor inconvenience to schools and teachers. When placed against the backdrop of an entire workday at school, of what consequence could a few late minutes be? But school tardiness is not just a few minutes of missed instruction for one student. The consequences of tardiness can be felt by the teacher and multiple students, or even school administration. In our experience, it is almost always better for students to work on a plan to recover credits over time. We have found that students forced to repeat a grade in high school or even middle school are more likely to struggle with courses due to poor self-esteem and will likely lack academic motivation. The academic decline over the summer break is more pronounced the longer the summer lasts and in students who do not actively engage their brain in other ways over the summer months. Children who are intellectually stimulated over the course of the summer experience less learning loss than students who do not. The difference in academic performance between the students who are intellectually stimulated and those who are not is significant, and it's a driver of the so-called achievement gap. Why are we also seeing a significant rise in the number of international students coming to America in high school? Well, it stands to reason that international students who have earned a high school diploma in America will also find it easier to compete for international slots in colleges and universities. Not only will they be more competitive than candidates applying from overseas, they will also have more knowledge of the application process and which universities are most suitable for them. So one thing that can relieve your stress with the new school you're starting out is to map your day. So if you can get a copy of the school map and figure out where you're going from class to class, you can get it more organized in your head where you need to go and how you need to get there. Don't be afraid to ask for directions either. There'll be teachers in the hallway, they'd be happy to help you, or ask another student. If you are a returning student, it'd be a good way to meet new friends to offer to help others that are looking to find their way around school. A second tip is to think through the essentials that you'll need for the first day. A lot of schools will send out a school supply list, but you won't really know what you're going to need for each class until you've met your teacher for the first time. But there are some things that you know that you're going to need. You're going to need a backpack, you're going to need binders, you're going to need pens and number 2 pencils, and maybe a highlighter to help you with your textbooks. As the name suggests, magnet schools are designed to attract good students. They have a specialized curriculum of some sort, and they're trying to work with above average students. Getting into magnet schools can be competitive. A lot of them will have a testing criteria as well as a lottery system. So usually students will have to take a test of some sort to qualify for entry, which may have a high bar to begin with. And then they'll be in a lottery system, so they're not even guaranteed if they do well on the test of getting into the school.
Not every student is ready for accelerated coursework. Being the lowest student in an advanced class is actually not going to be as good for your child as being an average student in an average class. Even if they're not a bad student, they'll feel a lack of confidence if they're below where the other peers are in that class. So be realistic about your child's capability and make sure that you pick a school and classes that are right for them. No skill is more important than learning how to study for students to be successful at school. When students are younger, teachers tend to teach all the content that's going to be required for the student in the classroom, kind of spoon feeding it to them. But as students get older, the content is going to get more complex, and students are going to be required to study more at home. Learning how to do that is critical for student success. So let's be honest, these long school days are full of a lot of wasted time for the students. By shortening the school day, we're going to be able to eliminate a lot of the non-essential things that are happening that are really just filler time for the students. Shortening the school day should result in students being at school when they're better rested and more focused, and their time in the class should be more productive than it is with the longer school days. The most important thing that you can do your freshman year is to establish sound study habits. Good study habits will lead to good grades, which will give you the most options for college admission. Beyond that, students should select extracurricular activities of interest and pursue them with purpose. This could be athletic, artistic, or even job and nonprofit activities. There will certainly be time to change activities later, but students should start to pursue extracurriculars as freshmen. A gap year, sometimes referred to as a sabbatical year, allows a student to take time off before committing to their plans after high school. For better or worse, many students have found themselves off the beaten path following the disruption of COVID. A gap year allows students time to regroup and contemplate what they really want to focus on after high school. A gap year can be focused around a job, an apprenticeship, or even travel. A gap year can be somewhat ad hoc and informal, but there are also many formal gap year programs to give more structure to the time and experience for the year. Now more than ever, parents really need to pay attention to their child's program and class assignment. Make sure your child is in a class of reasonable size with a teacher qualified to teach them. We don't recommend being confrontational with your child's school, but you need to connect with your school's administration if you feel something is off with your child's schedule. School administrators are working overtime to recover from the Great Resignation, and you need to do what you can to make sure your child's needs are not at the bottom of their priority stack. Students need to have one place where they keep track of their work. Students will think that they can remember what needs to be done, but very few students will actually recall everything they need to be done when they sit down to complete their homework. This can take a lot of different forms, from task lists to folders and binder locations, but the student needs to commit to the method where they keep track of work and follow it in all of their classes. There is some variability in how to define high-dosage tutoring, but all studies agree to qualify students must receive one-to-one attention with qualified teachers at least 3 times a week. If these criteria are met, research indicates few programs can accelerate student achievement faster than high-dosage tutoring. A predictable, consistent routine can go a long way to reducing stress for shy students. The first few days of class are uncomfortable for most students, but for the shy students it's especially important to find a routine and stick to it. One reason homework may be bad is that it doesn't always provide the return on the investment of time to justify the amount of time and the stress it takes to complete. If teachers are not careful or do not coordinate with each other, it's possible for students to be assigned an unreasonable amount of homework. Students who are being assigned too much homework will develop negative feelings about school and may give up as students. In addition, if students are not capable of completing the homework assigned, either because of ability or because the material was not well taught in the class, it leads to discouragement and resistance to learning. It can get especially bad for students and teachers when the stress builds at home just trying to complete the work. To start with, there are two types of schools in America parents have to choose from: public schools and private schools. Public schools are run by the government and are free for students to attend. Private schools are run independently and cost money for students to attend. So the question is, are private schools ahead of public schools and therefore worth the additional cost? One way we might measure whether private schools are ahead of public schools is to compare the school's curriculum. Most private schools seek to use curriculum at least a year ahead of the commensurate public school grade level curriculum. Private schools understand that they must demonstrate that they outperform the local free public school, so they make sure their content that they teach their students is clearly ahead of what is being taught in the local public schools. Using curriculum only as a measure, you would say that private schools are ahead of public schools. While we all want our children to become independent learners, sometimes it becomes apparent that a child needs a little boost to help them achieve their potential. Tutoring is a great way to give your child an academic boost. What are the signs that your child might need a tutor? First, probably the most objective way to see that your child needs a tutor is slipping grades. Not every child will be a straight A student, but when an A student becomes a B student or a B student becomes a C student, you may need to consider a tutor for your child. Second, it's not hard for parents of elementary school kids to help their child with their homework, but eventually students are going to get into content that a parent cannot remember. When your child is taking upper level coursework you can no longer remember, it may be another sign that your child needs a tutor. Third, sometimes a student struggles not from lack of ability, but from lack of confidence. They're also unsure of themselves and they may get stuck with content they need to complete and move past. Oftentimes, students will become frustrated with classes or assignments, thinking that what they're learning isn't applicable to their lives outside of school. While it may be true that every STEM major may not exactly reflect on knowledge retained in subjects like history, it's still important on how you've retained that information. Oftentimes, essays, studying, and homework are all working in tandem to prepare you with life skills. These skills are important for the fact that you'll be using techniques learned all throughout your high school and the rest of your life. This applies to all students, including students who choose to pursue a career instead of going into college after high school.